Inconceivable!
And welcome back.
Typical IRM.
You know, it wasn't too bad. Oh, wait. Look, I'm going to have to... And welcome back. Almost forgot to unmute. Look at me go. At least we didn't get like 10 minutes into the conversation like I usually do.
Should I go check the live stream just in case?
Nope, you go ahead and check. I see it. I see our bars are bouncing. We're good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that first hour and a half was absolutely awesome. Crow, I can't thank you enough for being here with us again. And yeah, however long you can give us. I've got tons of questions. I've got reams of notes here. But yeah, I hope you're back, actually. Are you back?
Well,
Hey.
it's all right.
Phil.
Give you a chance to refine that compliment.
Yeah, it was a bit shit, wasn't it? Yeah, it's a bit clunky. I'm a bit wound up today.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, it's Crrow777radio.com. And you're back. I was just saying that first hour and a half was fantastic, and we can appreciate any time you can stick with us. I think we're into sort of casual phase at the moment. Has anyone got burning topics to cover with Crow before I yabber on anymore?
I just had one quick question. Has to do with alchemy. More the not so much spiritual side of it, but I know back in the day they used to give people maybe an incantation or something to sing while they were taking the medicine, or while the medicine was being made. They would actually, almost like a ritual, but I think it had to do with the vibrations.
Yeah, it's what ritual has become that's fooled us all. Intention is one of the most powerful things that can be manipulated in this world. Dr. Emoto, may he rest in peace, was one of the people who demonstrated that water had memory and that you could embed intention into it. The spiritual side of alchemy is what separates true medicine of a human being from what passes for medicine now. As an example of this, let me see here. Not only are you watching the year, the natural world, what cycle you're in, what plants are available at this time of year, the certain hour of the day, which is represented by the sky clock to harvest a given thing, you are doing during the purification phase of making medicines, the lesser alchemy of spagyrics, what's called exalting it. So not only do you break it apart, then come to the purification where you've basically got the spirit, you've got the soul, you've got the body all broken apart. You purify it. In other words, only a human being has the wherewithal, the know-how, and the ability to do this in this natural world. So they start to purify, but then there's another level to it that's called exalting it. So not only are you purifying it, you're exalting it. The whole process is a spiritual endeavor. And what you called an incantation or a ritual is actually intent, a spiritual intent for all good things to be encompassed in this, to purify this plant, which was seemingly a plant made by the creator or however it got here, but a human being can then take it, break it apart to its constituent components, purify it, then go a step further than any other living thing can do and exalt it, and then put it all back together. And the potency of that living medicine that you have now created is what we have lost. It's what we have forgotten about in the natural world. And so what we now call ritual or incantation are just shadows of what once was, when truly a spiritual aspect of what a human being can bring to the table has been lost. And now it's just like a pantomime. You know, we do these things because it's this day, and so we wear a funny hat or we collect eggs, but it's all remembering a time when in fact that unique thing that it is to be human could be brought to bear. And maybe in the modern age, that word could be summed up by the word intention. Intention is a potent thing.
I was I wholeheartedly agree with that. I've not done many legit things. As I've talked on, I made my dad's Rick Simpson oil or whatever, and it wasn't just like compounding like I've done in the past. For the whole time when I was doing every bit of the process, the positive thoughts of this is going to do this, this is going to do this, you know. And it's not until afterwards I've seen the results in with my dad and learning from Zach and yourself, Craig, because you've got me into spagyrics and that set me on the way. But, you know, I look back on that now and I just wonder how much love that I know I put into that, you know, because it was for my dad. Every bit of breaking that or crushing it, rinsing it, squeezing it, the passion that was putting into every time I'm squeezing that bag of weed and getting every bit of solvent out. I've squeezed harder than I've ever squeezed in my life, you know. And I couldn't prove it empirically in any way, but genuinely, I do think that's the deciding thing and one of the most powerful things when you are doing it.
These things can't be proven empirically, because to prove it empirically is to cheapen it down to what we call science now. It is the knowing of a human being that demonstrates it is either a thing or it is not a thing. But I would point out things that can maybe be analogous to what you're describing as the average person will remember the food their mother made for them as the best food they've ever had. Well, what was it? She made you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Why can't your wife now make you that identical peanut butter and jelly sandwich and it be as good? And the reason is because your mother loves you. The intent that was put into that food prepared for you will in fact make it the best food you will ever eat, bar none, for the rest of your life. And anyone can test what I've just said in a simple thing. You can take water, take two identical glass receptacles, fill them to the same level, halfway up or so, and then with one, concentrate on it and put all the positive you can in it. Take a piece of tape, put it on the outside of that glass where all your positive intention has gone in, and write words like love, compassion, these types of things, put it in the freezer. With the other one, think all the negative things you can think. And then on the tape, write something like death or violence or these types of things. There will be a difference in the freezing of these two waters because water has memory, and as Emoto proved, intention can be bedded into it. But it will further show you how potent an individual you are. As an example, your neighbor may not be able to embed as much intention as a thing as you can. And quite often you'll find that women are far better at embedding intention than men are. But you can do these things, and while it is kind of a cop-out in an almost empirical way, say we're going to cheapen this down with science, sometimes in the modern age you need that one demonstration to get you going on your way. And then after that, there's no science needed. There's no empirical evidence needed. You know, no one can tell you that the sky is green because you know it's blue. In the same way, you can understand that your intention, your actual intention, was embedded into that water. And that opens up a whole lot of doors. Like when you're going into a church and that holy water's there, who was the priest that put the intention into that holy water? Think about it.
Yeah, I actually had that moment of, wow, this actually works. I made the 7 basics, 7 spagyric elixirs, 1 for each day of the week, going by certain herbs that I got from multiple alchemy books, and they lined up. And I took them for about 6 months, and the whole time, I mean, when I bought the plants to do this, when I was pruning them while I was growing them, I was asking them to grow my hair back. I know it's very vain. This was before I found flat earth and all other kinds of things. I wanted to know about alchemy. For some reason, I was drawn to it. But yeah, my hair actually started growing back.
Well, having hair is part of being healthy, but I'm gonna venture a guess here. So for your day of the sun, I'm gonna see if I can guess the herb you used. You ready?
Yep.
Sage.
No. I was actually taking care of somebody who had epileptic seizures real bad, so I couldn't grow sage in my garden. I actually used marigolds for the day of the sun.
Nice. We have people here, since there's so much farming in this community still, and when they put up their garden, woodchucks and voles and things will will come after what you're growing, and they line marigolds up all the way around the border. Still to this day, they do it. It's funny. You see so many people say, "Oh, that's beautiful." They put a plant border, a flower border around their garden. They don't understand. There's the natural science. Those marigolds are protecting the food that they are growing. But I'm pretty impressed that you did that for the full 7 days. It takes intent. Did you actually harvest according to the proper hour of the day and all these kinds of things?
No, because I did not believe in astrology back then. It seemed so far away back then. Before I found that we're geocentric, I didn't do it. I should have.
Let's get something straight. To use astrology is to cheapen it in the mind of the modern listener. So maybe I should have said, did you use the sky clock to gauge the appropriate time to harvest your natural medicine? Maybe that's a more accurate way to put it. It doesn't remove what you've done, but it shows the level. I mean, some of these guys that you read about, and this is not easy reading. You have to learn a lot, and you still understand that there are things encoded there that you couldn't possibly understand unless you put a lifetime. But these guys will do it down to the minute. Okay, today the so-called Jupiter hour is this hour, and this is back in a time too when no one's wearing a wristwatch. You see, they're so in tune with the natural world that they're getting this down to the minute, and then they're saying prayers, and the average person hears Jupiter and they don't understand. They're all, what is that? Zeus? Is that the god? Is that? It's none of that. You see, this is the cheapening through our tales of Rome and supposed ancient Greece, which is all constructs. These are not gods. These are not anything of the sort. It is aspects of nature. That luminary. That's right. That luminary in the sky, whether it be sun, moon, or one of the supposed 5 visible planets, they are measuring the aspects, the angles of the aspects of nature. That's truly what this is about. So when they're talking about the Jupiter hour, or whether Jupiter's in the sky, and your own language encodes it. As an example, you might describe someone as happy, as jovial. The root of that word is Jove. That's Zeus. There's your Jupiter right there. Jupiter represents all good, positive, happy aspects of nature, whereas in the current age, Saturn would be the exact opposite for us. But if we were a higher-minded society, Saturn would mean only good things. Unfortunately, we have a long way to grow, so everything about Saturn is going to be damn hard for us right now.
It's interesting you say that, though, Crow. I live in a sort of farming community in the UK over here, and speaking to an old bloke who we became friends a few years back, he was telling me how the farmers around here still harvest and plant according to the moon calendar, and
of course,
and these guys know it. They don't tell anyone about it. It's not in any sort of textbooks of state ownership, but they know full well when to plant, when to harvest, and it's interesting stuff for sure.
If you look up an almanac to this day, they still have those tables, and you will find that very few things are ever planted under a full moon. And these are not arguable things. To the average ear, they will think they are. But I would point out that the complete life cycle of a female, which is analogous with the moon, can be shown in the cycle, the phases of the moon. As a matter of fact, menstruation, which is part of a woman's ability to give birth to a new human being, is dictated by the moon. This was known in all past natural societies. In the same way, the sun is masculine and electric, the moon is feminine and magnetic, the sun being positive, the moon being negative. But even that is lost on the modern listener because they say negative, that's bad. No, if you have a battery, there is a positive and a negative side, and guess what? You ain't getting no energy out of it if you take the positive or the negative away. It's not about good and bad. It's about the dual nature of the natural system, and the battery is just echoing the requirement for anything to live here. That's part of the game.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Never thought of it that way.
I really got into electricity too. for a little while.
I hate to interrupt you, but I now accept that the only energy force we have here is electricity. It is the father of magnetism. So we've got electricity and electromagnetism. But at this point, that's where I'm at, man. The only thing that we can use for power or energy is electricity, and by extension, electromagnetism.
There's an ongoing topic in FE at the moment with regards to gravity and the what is up and what is down. Would you say that it's that electric force that is the decider in what is up and down as well on the plane we live in terms of whether that's how the buoyancy and density orders itself and the way in which it orders itself, that same direction of current is.
Are we talking about it as a mean to demonstrate that gravity is nonsense made up by some Jewish dude named Einstein? If that's,
I don't want to go into that. I'm talking more from how this electromagnetic force dictates everything, even what is up and down.
Why, I suppose, yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, absolutely, it is the thing here. As a matter of fact, I will go so far as to say what people call the firmament, which I have referred to as the hard, fast barrier. I strongly suspect that it is superheated plasma. The sun being electric, the moon being magnetic, positive and negative poles. But I always try to boil things as basic as I can, as a common sense starting point. And I would say up and down is dictated by whether the sky's over your head and the earth is under your feet. I would further say that what day did we wake up when we dropped a rock and we needed to invent something called gravity to describe why the rock was falling? It's pretty clear that the rock is heavier than the air, right? It's why it falls through water too. And that starts a whole other conversation. As far as I can tell, Einstein was brought on the stage to introduce a bunch of fantasies for us to believe in, but the main thing being they needed to get rid of the old alchemical truth that the fifth element is in fact ether. And so none of these propagating waves that get talked about can go anywhere unless they have something to propagate through. In the same way, if I went down to the beach to watch a wave, but the water was gone, guess what? There'd be no wave to watch. That's what ether provides to the natural world. So all these elements that are represented by planets or the sun and moon, which are actually aspects of nature, have to propagate through something to give any effect. That's something they propagate through is in fact ether. And Einstein just came on the scene and said, guess what, boys? Ether doesn't exist, but he never did an experiment or any other damn thing to show why. And then he introduced nonsensical stuff that led to complete BS like black holes. Third law of thermodynamics proves black holes is nonsense, and any physicist worth his salt knows this. And I've met a number of them.
Well, this is why I find it so astonishing that Einstein got anywhere. I mean, his relativity papers had no references, no experiments, like you say. It was literally pure conjecture, and yet it was front page news, and still is. The guy is lauded on every pedestal. But if there was ever a definition of reading some crackpot's web page with nothing on it other than someone's opinion, then Einstein's relativity papers were exactly that. Any self-respecting scientist, in quotes, would have laughed it out of existence because of its unscientific format.
Well, it sure helps when you have all of the media in the world in your back pocket. But here's a funny thing. Go out and find pictures of Einstein. Go ahead, find him wearing more than one suit of clothes. Look at all those pictures, and he's always wearing the same damn thing. Einstein is a fraud, and he's a fraud similar but in a different way than Stephen Hawking was with his magical brain-reading computer. These are fraudulent things led to make us all into children believing fantasy. That's what Einstein
Come on,
is.
Crow. Don't you know he had a closet filled with that exact costume for every day of the week, so he didn't have to waste brain power on that? He could just think up whatever thinking up he needed to do for the day.
Well, so we're told. I guess if you're going to marry your sister, you don't need impressive clothing.
Exactly.
Well, I was given photos this week of Einstein wearing women's sandals. So I don't know quite how that plays into it. But on a side note, anyone out there, Google Einstein and shitbag, and you'll find my blog.
Yeah, well, this starts to give real credence to the learned elders of Zion, right? What's one of the things they say? We had our geniuses working for a really long time behind the scenes to invent all this nonsense for people to believe in. So you want to know why Einstein didn't show his work? Because there was no work to show, and for all we know, Einstein is just a construct. Probably was. Very likely that he was. And I don't care. Ether exists. It's provably it exists. And anyone who doesn't believe it, go look up the work Michelson and Morley did, because as far as I can tell, those are the two guys that needed to be debunked by the genius Ashkenazi Einstein.
He was a rush job, wasn't he? He was a rush job designed to quickly eradicate the gathering evidence for the ether. And
of course, that's why they only had one set of clothes for him. The stage wasn't that big. They didn't even get wardrobe on the scene.
They didn't even have the equipment or even the experiments set up properly, hence the rushed bending of light around the star or around the sun, the rushed experiments that are quite clearly farcical and don't back up or couldn't possibly back up his assertions within his formulas. They were a rush job, really designed to eradicate quickly the concept of the gathering concept of ether and the gathering proof of ether.
So he's like famous as hell, where all these guys are going out all over the world to get their eclipse in place. They can prove, oh, look, light's bending around this. Look how long he is famous before anyone claims to finally confirm that. And the funny thing about it is that's nearly impossible for any just average person to prove wrong. The idea that the star you're seeing is actually behind where you're seeing it. It's something else, man. And then they make up all these stories. Oh, it clouded up that day. We waited 10 years for this. And what they were doing was waiting to see if the climate was right, I think. And then finally they thought, okay, maybe we can announce that Einstein was right and we've proven it, because everyone's so stupid now they'll buy into it. That's sure what it seems like.
Well, that's interesting, because it was, I think that experiment was 1919. Correct me if anyone knows otherwise, but even the results of the experiment entirely contradicted Einstein's predictions. The stars were further away from the sun when they should have been closer to the sun if his theories were on target. So it's just riddled with contradiction and smoke and mirrors and nonsense, like you say.
It's unbelievable where we've come, and it's unbelievable that so many very smart people can spend a lifetime getting a single degree. Don't get me started on that, man. That's a whole other thing. In the old alchemical view, there were 360 possible degrees of a sphere of learning. And somehow we've now come to a point where having 3 degrees is like the height of being smart. You get a bachelor's, you probably have a master's, then you get your PhD. That's 3 degrees out of a possible 360 degrees of knowing. That's how far we have been dumbed down. But to get to my point, how is it that we don't get endless PhD candidates when they're going to do their thesis? When I was growing up, my father always had a stack of PhD theses that he was either saying, okay, this guy can go forward, or this isn't good enough. And constantly, he wants his kid to grow up to be a scientist, because that's what he wanted me to do. You say, look at this thesis, look at all these problems. So here I am, some 12-year-old kid going, yeah, that is a problem. This guy's writing a PhD. How is it that these people didn't endlessly begin to challenge? And then it dawned on me. Well, of course, because there were guys like my dad who'd been trained in science, one of the smartest men I ever knew. But the problem is for that thesis to have legs, it has to conform to the paradigm. Mm-hmm. So some wildcat coming in saying, hey, by the way, my thesis is on ether, he's not going to go very far. So even the system itself insulates it. And I'll tell you what, my father was not a guy to shoot people down for those types of reasons. It was about merit. In his eyes, the one thing he couldn't tolerate was stupid people. That was my father's shortfalling. And it used to bother me as a kid because I think, well, you know, some people are born the way they're born. How can you hold not being bright against this person? If you were born where he was, you'd probably be the same. But nonetheless, it wasn't prejudiced in that way. It was simply, is this articulate and well thought through? And yet I can look backwards now and surmise that if someone would have came forward with gravity doesn't exist, I doubt if that thesis would have made it any further.
But then if all of us, you know, regardless of background or wealth or anything else, were taught the fundamentals of the, oh crap, what are they called? The 3 and the 4.
Oh, the quadrivium and the trivium?
Exactly. Yeah. The what everyone was what was supposedly told was taught to, and what they're teaching people at you know, the sort of Ivy League universities and that, if you can believe that as well. I mean, if everyone had the same sort of base grounding of an education, then would there be stupid people if they were taught logic and being able to see this stuff?
No, not in the way we count stupid now. There certainly would not, because what's held in high regard now is is your diction right? Are you pronouncing the words right? Can you spell a word, which is falling by the wayside quickly because everyone has spell check. But these types of superficial ideas, and your point is well taken. If everyone, and I have said for a long time, if everyone exposed their children to what's called the 7 liberal arts, which also has been ruined for the modern day because so many people hear the word liberal and go screaming out the door. But the 7 liberal arts, which is basically the trivium and the quadrivium, which we can only really get abridged versions of today, as far as I know, taught those things, you would have a basic foundation in natural science. And so your point about being an intelligent person flies out the window, because suddenly it's not, did you read the Greek classics? It's, do you understand that everything has a resonance? Do you understand that music and math and sacred geometry are hand in hand in hand? And not only that, if you simply taught every person in school today, it was required music and geometry, sacred geometry, think about how different a world we would live in.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just taught a child how to be didactic and how to teach themselves, then you wouldn't even need you know, to go any further. Basically, it's a case of, I'm interested in this, so I'm going to go and find out about it, and then they can use their discernment to realize what they're reading is not right, or it is right, or it has that ring of truth, like you say so often.
That's kind of why we're ridiculed, isn't it, as flat earthers, because they're not really bothered. They can control the shape of the Earth paradigm. I'm sure that's more manageable than they think. But actually, what probably really scares them is there's people coming out that are breaking out of the paradigm and are starting to call it critical thinking, whatever woolly, I use the word liberal, their woolly liberal phrase you want to put on it. But what it is people are starting to think for themselves, and more importantly, analyze for themselves in an honest appraisal from inside, as opposed to an appraisal based on the teachings you were given and only sticking within that. And I think that's what scares the mainstream most about us guys, is that it's starting to naturally form itself again. We might be starting from the basics, but we're starting from the basics properly.
Well, there's things people can look at, I would point out, that have directly to do with the ideas of every educated child back in the day getting the 7 liberal arts as a basis, in a time, incidentally, when 1 or 2 or 3 degrees was not the be-all and end-all. You might earn a doctorate and get respect for that, but in the natural sciences, the idea was 360 degrees. Even the Masons have held on to a lesser version. They tout 33 degrees, which is all about the sun, of course. You know, how many degrees when the sun moves out of one side to the other. The idea of nothing can be higher than the sun, but they, in fact, are hiding degrees beyond that themselves, because we're all profane. So they admittedly talk about the 33. But there's another movie out there which illustrates this point perfectly. and I'm not real big on Hollywood movies, but since it is in vogue in the current age, I will point out that one of Jason Linger, my co-host's favorite movie, is called Time After Time, and it's the whole Jack the Ripper nonsense attached to H.G.
Yes.
Wells again.
Yes.
But what happens in that movie is a guy comes from the 1800s up to the 70s, and he's pre-echoed to everyone before he does the time travel that, man, and by the time the 70s is here, we will have learned so much, it's going to be a utopia. And so sure enough, they show you his home, how he's living, his level of knowing in the 1800s, and he jumps forward and he finds the exact opposite. He finds the idiocracy. even asking a woman, where's all your books? My God, where's all your books? And she says, well, we like to watch movies now. But the point here is that man taken from the 1800s into the 70s is so much more intelligent than everyone in this era, because where he came from, even his house was of a higher quality than we're now used to. All the furniture was made to a high quality by hand. All the learning was much higher. He spoke numerous languages. He'd read all the classics in their native tongues, Arab, Greek, or anything else, French, Italian. And then he gets up to where we are, and it illustrates the fall we've taken. But more importantly, it probably illustrates the short amount of time that fall has actually occurred. And I'm on the record as saying that I suspect the real hardcore fall came from the greatest generation. Those people who are our grandparents or great-grandparents now that dealt with World War II were the first generation to face television. The people who invented it, the Tavistock Institute, stated openly in documents that would be the hardest generation to socially engineer. So if I had to guess, the huge fall we've taken is certainly from the 1800s forward, but more recently the dive, the just headlong dive, probably from around the 30s forward.
I've got to agree with that. And in your episode, what was it, 119, I think it was, you were talking about central banks. And you were talking about the history of empires collapsing when a small percentage of the population owns all of everything. And I've got to ask, do you think we're nearly there now?
Well, one of the references I gave was from 54, the Mercury, I can't remember the date. I think it was 54, maybe it was 45. I don't know. I'm kind of dyslexic. But it was the Mercury magazine where they stated that less than 1% at that time currently owned 90% of all the wealth. Hell yes, we're there. There's a thing that we've learned from Alchemy that's critically important. It teaches us two things. It teaches us how to not be socially engineered, and it teaches us a requirement of the natural system. Simply put, that's variety. The more variety that is in our world makes it infinitely more difficult for us to be socially engineered. But more so, it is the variety of the natural world that makes this place everything each of us values, everything that each of us longs to get back to. The very reason that when you show up at a botanical garden, something deep within inside you says, man, this place is great, I'd like to come back here. It is that primordial essence of being a human being, recognizing the variety of the natural world. And on a past episode, I've said this, which people can go out and test all day long. When I was a young person, one of the things America was known for was its cars. Man, America made the best cars. It had the Camaro, it had the Firebird, it had the Road Runner, just all these cars the whole world looked at with envy. Go back and look at that time and understand that when Chevy came out with the Camaro, Ford was right there with the Mustang, with variety to try to capture the market. Further understand that there were actually a vast rainbow of colors across all these cars. As an example, the Road Runner actually had a purple that was called Road Runner Purple. And then these other colors associated with each manufacturer, which in fact would release its best effort to counter the fact that the Camaro held market share right now, or the Mustang held market share. Then the Firebird comes out, then the GTO comes out, then all this variety. Go out into America today and look at a class of SUVs like something like the Hyundai Santa Fe. If I was to put a Hyundai Santa Fe next to the Nissan version, all the other versions, they are nearly identical. But the real kicker here is look at what's happened to the variety of color. Now you see lots of whites and grays. not too many reds. All the colors have been muted down. Even the very vehicles we are driving and the marketplace around them demonstrates that the social engineers have choked variety down to a very limited number of colors, a very limited number of looks for cars, unless you get to really high-end cars, which demonstrates what I'm saying here. The system requires variety. And one problem with the internet is it has trained people to attack variety. If I believe a thing or accept a thing that you do not accept, then you should attack me because I'm a stupid globehead or I'm a dumbass flat earth person. Every time anyone listening to this attacks another human being online for having a different point of view, you are in fact working for the Tavistock Institute because you have just attacked variety.
Yep.
You meet another person that is different than you.
That's the best thing you've said all night, Crrow.
If you
We're going to
meet
use that soundbite.
another religion, another race, another point of view, and you do not embrace it, you are in fact working for the people who are crushing this world under their thumb. Variety is the only way forward, and never, ever should any human being wake up and attack another person for some different point of view or religion or anything else. It is that variety that may be the saving grace of humanity.
Well said. Well said. On that note, I mean, anyone listening to this may think that this is quite a sort of morose and negative sort of show. I'd just like to point out that if you don't confront this reality and what is documented as being is as happening to us and has happened through history, then you really have no hope. And this is my question is, I think we've got to the point, or from what I see looking around us, with Huxley's quote of saying that the people will love their servitude. That is what I see currently around me. They love their convenience. They love their convenience foods, their iPads, their fondle slabs. Have we gone past the point of caring, do you think? I mean, there is a small niche of people out here that on the fringe that can see all this happening, but most people, as far as I can see, don't care. They've gone past the point. What do you think?
Part of the problem is we don't control the information exchange, so that is what it's made to appear, to suck any last bit of hope out of you so you quit trying. What I suspect is true is that when I look out across the field of humanity in my mind's eye, I see a lot of lights of people waking up. The problem is my vision doesn't see the whole world. It can't right now. And I suspect that there are truly maybe many more millions of points of light in that field of people waking up. But the real truth is, if you go into a pitch black place and you ignite a pure white light, all darkness flees. And that will always give the advantage to the underdog. Right now, so many people who want to do the right thing and raise their children and have a better world and protect nature, they're being crushed. But the point I would make is there is power in wielding the light, the true light. I'm not talking about Lucifer and all this other nonsense that's been coded into our existence as an excuse to do the wrong thing, because that's what it is. It's an excuse to do the wrong thing. I'm saying if you are a good example and you set aside your personal wants and you help other people, or you try to say things that are helpful, that gets recognized and those people start to pick it up. And anywhere that walks, darkness isn't going to exist. I mean, how is it that I've been doing what I've been doing for as long? I even have my YouTube channel taken out. It was down for a month. Search returns on my name went from millions down to 60,000 at the time. And yet I'm still standing. And it goes to show you what very few people can pull off. And that, in fact, is what the powers on YouTube are deadly afraid of. Because it only takes a handful of effective people to start a mind change. And so there's all that. We can't know. We don't control information exchange. So truly, I suspect it will always make it appear as if there's no hope in hell for any of us. But I think the real truth is that each of us who tries is doing exactly what we should be doing, and we're a threat.
Yeah, well said. I think I'm seeing the same. I'm seeing, although I'm not seeing it in my neighborhood, I'm seeing it in my circles online, of more and more people waking up. And on that note, with all these historical accounts of empires collapsing when the minority owns everything, have you come across any sort of documentation or books or anything that documents what happened after the collapse and how we can possibly mitigate against all this crap?
Well, it's a bit like the BS being covered by more BS. Like the Dark Ages is a good example. How the hell is it even possible for a Dark Ages? So did India and China have a Dark Ages when supposedly Europe did? Because if they didn't, that wasn't the Dark Ages, was it? There was free information exchange and learning and growing going on in these other places, presumably. These are the kind of veils that are cast down. Like, you see, we had this higher thing going on, and then it fell apart, and all the peasants walked around and slept with pigs for a few hundred years. And then when they woke up one morning, and guess what? It was the Renaissance. You see, this is covering what actually happened. What actually happened, as far as I can tell, is there was a time when natural science ruled, when people were very in tune with the natural world, living better than we are living now. And this is actually shown in some weird things, like the word pagan. Look how much effort the church took to make pagans look like the worst thing going. You know what the word pagan means? It means one who lives in the country. In other words, a person who understands nature is a pagan. And yet the church took it upon itself to make those the boogeyman, the devil worshippers, anything they could think of to make them look bad. As far as I can tell, most of what we call history is complete and utter nonsense, to include ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, which somehow we had ancient Rome, which became the Vatican, which, I mean, it's all a shell game of some kind. Even the doors of ancient Rome's Senate ending up on the first cathedral at the Vatican. But to get to the point, we had a better way going, man. We were in tune with nature. We did things that were in tune with nature. We didn't have to buy a book to tell us when to plant, because everyone there understood how this place works. And the medicine, oh my God, the medicine. There were actually men in this world, which we now probably call alchemists or witches or warlocks, who made real living medicine from real living plants that actually cured people. And to top it off, I would be very damn surprised if a person that didn't eat organic food and drink pure water their whole life didn't have much more of a lifespan than we have now. They're obscuring a past that they want to replace, and it's a bit hard to fathom.
It's not just obscuring, is it? You talk about alchemists and the nonsense we're fed now of the image of a medieval alchemist is someone at the bequest of some lord whose only purpose is for him to turn space metals into gold. And
right,
it would be foolish to think that all of these well-to-do people were investing time and effort and money continuously, hundreds and hundreds of years, in the vain hope of turning base into gold. It's quite clearly that's again another misnomer to hide the truth behind the real high status that alchemists held and the real importance to the society's health that knowledge held, and it's that decryment of it and the ridicule of the role that you see now. That's what we're left with, as somebody said, in what can only be described now as the real Dark Ages.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, turning lead into gold. Even the lie that's all wrapped up in that describes perfectly what happens, because each of us listening to this now, for the most part, are sitting here right now trying to figure out how to turn lead into gold. This is the material fictitious realm. The real alchemy of turning a base metal, which was us, into gold, which was a higher human being, was always the goal of alchemy.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
any number of other religious endeavors. So the next time a Muslim calls a Christian bad, or a Christian calls a Buddhist bad, they're all on a path that went to they were all after the same thing. They were all trying to turn a base human being into gold. And yet the lie that was spun is that the alchemists were taking literally lead into literally gold, which is where we all came. Now we all chase money because we can't afford to eat or pay our rent or even have a child. How does it? I mean, come on, man. How do we get to a place in this world where just to have another human being called a child costs a certain amount of money? It's beyond ludicrous, man.
It is. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. the question I was asking was how can we mitigate against this, and how can we learn from history as to how other people dealt with collapses of empires. And I think the overriding message I'd like to put across from this podcast is the word nature and natural, and we need to get back to what we've covered in this podcast of natural law and natural science, which seems to me what was being practiced in the so-called Dark Ages, and what we have been completely hidden from. And you've mentioned the Vatican twice. I'm a large believer in the fact that what the Vatican holds, whether it holds it physically or just metaphorically, the Vatican is one of the keys to this awakening. Have you heard of the Vatican riots prophecy?
No, I haven't, but before you explain them, I would point out that we are told people like Napoleon, who told us all history was a lie agreed upon, owned the Vatican. They took it over. There's one thing we know for certain about conquering nations. They go in, they take the wealth, they take the knowledge, they even take the people who are smart enough to bring new technologies. And so how is it possible that the history we've relied on is anywhere near true when Napoleon simply would have marched into the Vatican and marched off with the true history of the world? But to answer your question, I'm not familiar with that prophecy.
No, I agree. I mean, the Vatican is a sort of a boogeyman, a name at the moment, where the actual records of the Vatican, I believe there is a place somewhere that has all the answers, that has all these documents that could clear up the entire history of where we've come from, what we're here to do, what is important, what isn't important. It sort of sparked an interest in me a few years back when I heard that there was a prophecy that all of this would fall when the Vatican was stormed, whether it's metaphysical or not. Not sort of metaphysical, whether it's metaphorical or not. Not the Vatican vaults or whatever, but there is some cash still around, still available to the rulers of the world at the moment, the so-called rulers. I'm just wondering if that rings a bell with anyone else, or sparks any sort of motivation with anyone else. That's what we need to find.
It's a faint
I've
ringing.
not heard that prophecy at all, no, John.
Well, I guess I would point out, I'm getting pretty close to having to punch out here, guys, but I would add, alchemy is not the be-all and end-all, but what it is a direct bridge back to a very important thing we lost, which is called nature. Within the teachings of spagyrics, if you do that, the lesser alchemy of plants, or the greater alchemy in general that deals with things outside of the plant kingdom, it is like other religious traditions. They all tell you why we're here. The goal of alchemy is the goal of every other religion you've ever heard of. The problem is in the modern age, every religion you've ever heard of is a corporation. It's a dead body, owned and operated. That's what a corporation means. So for people who truly want to get some kind of a meaning, why are we here? What are we doing? I would suggest that there are places that can answer that question. And I would further suggest that in the oldest texts I have ever read, one of the most accurate descriptions of this lifetime and the lifetimes before is that we are in a cycle of hardship and necessity. And that tells us quite a bit if we think about it.
Wow. Good words, man. Good words.
Well said.
Indeed.
Yeah. And the whole thing about the Vatican being that the papal bull issued in 13 blah blah was that they own everything. Your soul, what is it? The three stages: your soul, spirituality, your body. it's for me it just seems a key to unlocking some of the mysteries that are going on, but the concentration back to natural law and natural sciences like alchemy is another key for me. And on that note, I would just love to say thanks again so much for joining us. It's been a roller coaster.
Well, I'll offer this up in closing. Intent is one of the most important things a human being can come to recognize and understand. The papal bull that you just pointed out is exactly that, right? Everything we have in this world that's man-made started out as an idea, and it wasn't made until it was turned into an intention. So first there's an idea, then there's an intention. So in that papal bull, which has been pretty effective right now, I think it could be argued that they own quite a bit, or they've convinced the rest of us that they own quite a bit. And how did that start? It started with an idea and then intention. If every single person listening to this came up with the idea that they're tired of that idea and put forward the intent that they don't agree with it and they want to do things in a better way, that's an awful lot of intent. Just saying that every time they try to crush all hope out of you and close channels and do all these things to make you feel helpless, they're squishing the intent out of you. Don't ever give up, man. A little intent goes a long way. But anyhow, guys, thanks so much for having me on. I got to call it a night here.
Your stuff.
Thank you so much,
Crow. Cheers, Rob.
Thank you so much, Crow. It was wonderful again, and we certainly want to have you back when you're available to do that.
Give me a holler if I've got time. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, it's a
shout
pleasure
out
to meet you, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers. All right, that's it. Have a good night, everybody. Everybody in the chat room, have a healthy, happy, and higher-minded year ahead. There it is, man. See you guys. Cheers.
Love you, brother.
Thank you so much, Crow. Awesome. Oh, I love doing this. Why I love you guys being able to make this stuff happen. I dig it.
And as much as I was enraptured in this conversation, the chat has been phenomenal. Love everyone there. It's been amazing. So I can't even go into details. It would be a whole 2-hour show on just what's going on there.
All right, let me rearrange some names here.
I love that. That was as John said, a roller coaster. That was from one topic to the next. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, from common law to cancer treatments to John got in at the end there. There is something, John, in those the end time. I'm trying to place where it is. I've read it myself. It's the Library of Alexandria will come out, and all of the shit that's been hidden to us when the Vatican falls, we'll understand everything and it'll put everything into place. It's trying to remember what it's from. It's a long time ago I've read that as well, John. But...
No, it just stuck in my mind.
Teams of people who are doing nightly runs at the Vatican. Not necessarily in this reality here, but trust me, it's being done.
So it's relatively early. What do you guys think about opening up the flatline?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready to quit yet.
We haven't done that in a while, at least not in time to actually take calls, provided somebody wants to call up.
Well, we can officially sort of announce that we're heading into the fringe, can't we? We're sort of on the 3rd hour now.
Sure, why not?
We haven't done that for at least a year.
At least, yeah. We have not really had a specific fringe cast, a fringy fringe cast.
This is so non-TFR. It's just, non-IRM. God, I can't even get my acronyms right.
All right, Peter.
I was going to say, are you
people, it's the same.
Peter? Which one are you?
I'll put my tooth back in.
Right, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so if you do want to call, do they know how to do it? Does anyone have a clue? I know how to do it.
Do it. Let's pop quiz hot shot. All the people in chat, if you know how to call the flat line, go ahead and post that number up for everyone else so that they can give it a call.
Wow. It's almost like a show or something happening. What's going on here?
Careful.
Let's see what happens. I see flatline. Paul,
Flatline.
thank you, Paul.
Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. Just Jack Flat.
All right.
Hey, Just Jack Flat Earth. I need you to shoot me an email over at ironrealmmedia@gmail.com. I tried to look for your email all week. I thought I had it somewhere. I knew we'd spoken somehow, and I'll be damned if I could find it. So if you could shoot us an email, I'd sure love to get you on here. We'll have a little conversation. This gives me a great opportunity because I wanted to do this. Not that she ever listens to this show, but shout out to my girlfriend, Dixie, who's been throwing around some dropping flat earth seeds over in her engineering firm. They just bid a job for a warehouse that was like 3 miles square. I think that was the total square footage, but that was still pretty big. So she asked the bidding engineers, so exactly how big of a job do you need to start on before you have to calculate the curvature of the earth? And he stops. He says, I've thought about that before. I don't have any idea. So they got into it a little bit and started talking about NASA. And I mean, she let him know, let him know about us over here in the realm. And, we make a pretty strong case that the world's not the spinny ball. I mean, she kind of hedges her bets a little bit. But they got to NASA and the moon landing. So he's like, so you don't think the moon landing was real? You don't think they landed the moon? She says, well, this is one thing I will say unequivocally, that no, I believe there is no chance that they actually landed on the moon. And I think that kind of caught him off guard, that she would have said it with such authority and conviction. So I think he probably went home and did a little bit of flat earth research that night. So she's down there dropping flat earth bombs on all those people.
Good
Definitely
girl. Shout out to Dixie.
Love it. That's amazing.
Brilliant.
So yeah, they're all structural engineers, and I know that Just Jack Flat Earth has some experience drafting for some structural engineers. So I really wanted to have a chance to get him on. That way we can shoot out an episode that she can pass along to all of her fellow employees over there in the engineering firm.
No, that would be interesting. Did anyone put up the flatline number, or shall we?
Winner, chicken dinner. Yes, Paul, actually.
Good, because I've got it written in front of me. I've got 001, and I presume that's coming from the UK. 304 503 3528. Flat.
Beautiful, John. Well done. We can't even get you to write down your own blog address. Ask you to tell people where your blog is, and you draw a blank.
I can't even remember my own
Einstein
phone number, man.
That's how he tells them to find his.
That's how I find my own blog. I can't remember the blog address, so I just Google Einstein shitbag.
T-shirt with that on it.
Or Google Einstein shitbag. Yeah, it works for me every time. They haven't blocked it yet. Because it gets one visitor a week, maybe.
That's it. Keep the numbers low. Stay under the radar.
That's my plan.
You think that hasn't been our plan all along? I'm nervous with 79 watching right now. I don't know.
I see 81, but yeah, I'm nervous too. It's getting if you get triple figures on there, then I don't know. I might have to find a new platform.
We'll start getting these boxes on our channel. Speaking of boxes, I guess we could talk about some of what's going on. I know it was going on, has been going on. We kind of glanced over it with Crow for a moment with the whole Alex Jones thing. But bullshit or not, false flag or not, him doing his own thing for attention to distract from what's really going on right now or not, there is an active push happening, even on my little tiny Flat Earth Head channel, which has no subscribers. Well, it has, and I love you all and thank you. I'm just saying, on the bigger scheme of things in the Flat Earth realm, it's a little tiny channel that I don't pay enough attention to. And I went to go find a video about our buddy Chad Swanson to see when he was on with us. And when I went to my channel and went to that video, because apparently Mason is in the title, there is now a little box under my video with an information to a link for a Encyclopedia Britannica article giving you the true information about Masonry and what it really is, and not the bullshit that my channel's feeding you, apparently.
What does it say? Well,
the actual article I have to pull out, because what I just pulled up is the actual. If you push on, click on the little 3 dots to the right to find out why am I seeing this, it tells you this information panel providing a topical context. Users may see information from third parties, including Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia, alongside videos on a small number of well-established historical and scientific topics that have often been subject to misinformation online, like the moon landing. So apparently,
they mentioned the moon landing.
Yes, and I'll put this on the screen actually. I can do that.
That's hilarious.
So area code 864. Go ahead and call back. I couldn't find out where to pop it up. I could hear it ringing, but I'll be damned if it showed up on any of my 4 screens that 5 if you count my phone, 5 screens that I have open here, where exactly to answer the phone. So feel free to give a call back and we'll try that again.
All right, are we seeing my channel? I mean my screen.
Oh, so
is it? Can you read it? Is everybody else seeing it?
Information panel providing topical context.
My mouse is just dead.
And this relates directly to the whatever she was, the head of Google or the head of YouTube. They had a congressional hearing saying, and the guy asking her, "What are you doing to control fake news or something?" And she said, "We're bringing up these little boxes under videos that show what we say, and if someone's going to talk about flat Earth, then we're going to obviously suppress that and put up this sort of nonsense."
Hello.
Well, hello, caller. Thank you.
Just Jack.
Well, thanks for calling in, Just Jack. I really appreciate that.
No problem. What's going on?
Oh, nothing. Just another day on the realm, kicking it on a Friday.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, man. I've been having many sleepless nights ever since I got online with the Flat Earth community. But I've been flat smacking for years, and it's all I do now. I can't not do it anymore.
It is really hard. It's almost a considered effort to just be quiet, because you know that as soon as you open your mouth, something's going to come out, and it's inevitably going to lead at least you to the flat Earth. Yep, I'm the same way.
Exactly. All roads lead to flat Earth. All roads. Yeah, I'm working at a new engineering firm that I just started this week, and it's taken everything in me to not just bring up my slideshow and just flat smack them right there, but I gotta get in good with them first so that they don't fire me for being crazy.
So, are you an engineer?
Tell them what's up.
Are you an engineer, Flat Jack?
I've been doing CAD drafting for 15 years. I've worked for civil engineers. I've worked for roadway engineers. I've worked for structural engineers. I've worked for just about every type of engineer you can think of.
Have you ever factored in the curve of the Earth?
Without licensing.
Say again?
I'm basically like an engineer without the licensing, because, they basically tell me, okay, here's the project, make it work, and then they sign off on it.
And have you ever had to factor in?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up just then?
Go on, Adam.
I was being sarcastic. You're an engineer without a license. Does that mean George Scumbag grashed you up to your regulatory body as well, or you're just qualified by knowledge?
I just have had so much experience working with the engineers that I can do the math for them, and they just overview it, and because it's of no responsibility to me, because I haven't gone through the quote-unquote schooling, the education, the signing off of, doctrination. But, I basically understand all the premises of the engineering.
So, not being sarcastic, have you or anyone you've ever worked with, an engineer, surveyor, or anything else, ever factored in the curve of the Earth?
No. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this with the interview with Mark Sargent, is that if I was to figure in the curvature, I think I would be fired. Because, we have to figure where all the water goes. And, there's a lot of money put into these projects. And if you design things wrong, you can be sued for, sometimes millions of dollars.
Actually,
so they painstakingly prove that the water gets away from the project. And if we considered the curvature of the Earth, I think no project would ever hold water.
That like the pun. But that's a fantastic point.
That we slope things away from the center of the project into the catch basins, the different water control systems, so that no flooding happens.
But that is a brilliant point, though.
On the center of every project.
Is that if you're going to build a building, you have to take into consideration drainage. Is that right?
Yeah. And the opposite point, John, that a project wouldn't hold water. It did hold too much water and flood.
Unless it's concave.
Yeah, it's flat. I mean, most of my work was in Florida, and Florida is very, very, very flat. And, we'd have some serious situations because some of the elevations in Florida are below sea level. So, and you have to figure out like a 100-year rainstorm, like, the worst possible storm possible in 100 years is going to give you this much water. And you have to make sure that in this worst possible scenario, water still doesn't stay on the property.
That's right. And
figured
Florida,
I would never have to worry about this 100-year flood because everything would just flow away.
Well, there's that great article about is Kansas flatter than a pancake, and it was found out that it was. But Kansas is actually the 7th flattest state out there. The
correct.
First flattest state was Florida, wasn't it? Well,
that's correct. Yeah. Florida's very flat.
You wouldn't be much of an engineer.
When I saw that, I understood like what they were talking about, because the claim was that Kansas is as flat as a pancake, and they accidentally found out that it was flatter than a pancake.
And a pancake's not actually that flat.
I mean, it is definitely flatter than a pancake.
That's funny. That is funny, but it does just that just slapped me in the face. Is that anyone designing these sort of buildings, like someone was just talking about a 3-mile square building, is going to have to take into account drainage, because otherwise the whole building could flood.
Right, absolutely.
And if we were on a curved earth, drainage wouldn't be a problem.
It was like, you don't think about it unless you're presented with it. There's no way that you would ever come to the conclusion that the earth was flat. But once it's presented to you and you look back at your life, experience, and especially in my field, you would be like, yeah, I've never, ever had to consider curvature. And I've seen properties that are huge and they are just flat. And we're talking about hundreds of, acres as well. These large developments for commercial zoning and residential neighborhoods and stuff like that. We're not talking about like individual lots. We're talking about huge communities.
Yeah, that's a great contribution. Cheers for that.
Yeah, I find it amusing that when you get into these discussions with these people that are arguing for the ball, all they have is belief. That's all they have. They have no physical proof. And whenever you start presenting them with, there's no physical proof, then they just go off into repeating the beliefs again.
I mean, that's the definition of a religion, really, is that it's based on trust, faith, and belief. And I completely concur. After 3.5 years of debating people who believe they're on a spinning sphere, that it is purely belief and trust and faith. Trust in authority, faith in what they're told, what they're taught, and belief that they live on a spinning ball. It is a religion.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And I'm all about finding the truth. That's been my goal for a long time. And when the person presented this to me, it was kind of interesting because even as a child, like in teenage years or so, I always wondered about the whole people going into space thing. It seemed like more like than a dumb idea to me, with the vacuum and the fluctuating temperatures and all that weird stuff. It always bothered me. It's like, it doesn't seem like we should even be up there. Why are we even trying? And I told my wife this when I married her. That was 15 years ago. And she's like, don't ever mention this to anyone. She thought I was just crazy. And
does she still think like that way?
To me, I told her how I felt about NASA. And my wife was like, oh boy, here we go. And now my wife supports me every step of the way for me to expose the truth.
Brilliant. Bang. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I got to encourage everybody to be bolder, though, because people are just scared to speak up, and it's big enough now they need to stop being scared. They need to speak up and tell them that they're being lied to. I go to a drive-through, I go to Starbucks, I go to a grocery store, I'm telling somebody that the earth is flat.
I admire that.
I ask them questions, and then I put the ball in their court. And when they can't answer the question, it makes them start thinking. And then I present my slides to them where I show the preponderance of evidence of the long-distance visuals and the mathematics of the curvature and, the different imagery that NASA produces, all the fakery. And usually by the time I get to the first lunar module, it's pretty much done.
I mean, do you think that it is now the point where we need to start challenging these people on their own grounds and start saying, prove it. Why are you teaching my children this rubbish? Why, when you can't prove any of it? And invite, I mean, it's not as if we haven't invited these people to debate flat earthers, or debate people who don't think we're on a spinning ball. The challenges are out there. They won't accept them. What do you think is the next sort of bold, brash statement?
I think it's a numbers game, really, because if their backs are going to be up against the wall. If, like, let's say, 3 out of 5 people believe the earth is flat, if you push past that tipping point, they're going to have to come up with something. And it's kind of a happy, scary thing at the same time, because they could try something really big to hide the truth.
Well, this is sort of what Nathan Oakley 1980 channel is all about. It's shoving it down the throat of these people and saying, come on, come forward and show us what you've got. Don't veer off the track and give us bullshit. We want to see facts. Yeah. We want to see the proof. And as we've seen, they cannot provide it. So it has to come to a point at some point. But like you say, they will go to all extremes to obfuscate this from us. I mean, the last I can I'll bring up an example was Stephen Hawkins and his laser helicopter boat curvature.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I was like, I can't believe that they made such a poor quality fakery. They could have done better at it.
Well, I mean, you look at NASA. I mean, they could have done better at everything there, which leads me back to thinking that this is designed to come out. I mean, the time has come. The time has come.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Interesting times.
It's a kind of a happy, scary thing, but I think it's better if it just comes out in the open and we stop the lies and the indoctrination centers. And I'm a firm believer in homeschooling because you have to give them both sides of the story so that they can weigh the matter out. And my children know more about the heliocentric model now than they did before I got into flat Earth.
Yeah, and that's a great point.
You know, I have to disprove it.
That's a great point.
I have to show them what others believe so that they can go against other people who believe this nonsense.
It's almost a prerequisite, a preliminary that the kids know the heliocentric model inside out. I test my kids every day on this, that they should know that model inside out before they question it. And that is very important to me. Because you can only see through the nonsense once you know it. Sorry, I talked over.
Yeah, that's all right. My daughter's been homeschooled for like 5 years, and she's wanting to go back to public school. She's 16 now. And I said, well, why do you want to go back to public school? And she goes, well, I'm losing out on this education. And I said, what education are you losing out on? And she was talking about theoretical physics and advanced algebra and things like that. And I says, why do you need to learn lies? What is the purpose of learning these additional lies? And she says, well, I can go to school and then come home and tell you everything I learned, and you can tell me why it's all wrong. And I says, that would be exhausting because I'd have to give at least 4 hours every day to debunk what she's learned for 8 hours every day.
Yeah, I mean, my kids go to school, but I consider them homeschooled from the day they were born by me.
Right.
So hopefully what I'm teaching them, or showing them rather, I mean, I'm showing them things with gyroscopes and seeing things over water, seeing things at a distance that we shouldn't be able to see, and the properties of gyroscope and that sort of thing. Hopefully what I'm showing them is gold compared to the absolute lead that they're learning at school. But yeah, it's a race, that's for sure.
Yeah, the problem for me is, like, I think that we were smarter before the indoctrination centers because we were out in the world and we were experiencing the world. And now they have you in boxes for 8 hours a day, and you don't know what nature holds. So like you said, you bring them to nature and you show them how the world works. And you hope it's enough to undo all the nonsense that's being fed to them through media and schools and everything else. But I think that they give you all these details for this false model, so you don't have enough room to fill it with truth because you're so full of the lies.
A really good source for a lot of this information that I found out there is a fella named John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. He was a New York State Teacher of the Year several years. He was a United States National Teacher of the Year for a few years. And he's really out there speaking out against this very Germanic type style of schooling that we've been basically had forced upon us. And he gets out there and he'll talk about getting kids out there working.
I've seen the interviews with him.
Yeah, he's older, so sometimes he's a little bit hard to listen to. But maybe if you find some of his earlier stuff, it's just gold. Yeah, anybody that's piques their interest in this conversation, go check out John Taylor Gatto. Great stuff.
Yeah, and I'll have to find this other view that I saw. I can't remember the lady's name, but she was in the beginning of the correlated school system and how they invented video games to give them that instant gratification of answer the question properly and get a reward. Not to understand the answer, but just to repeat the answer. You know, the experiment with the bell ringing for the dog.
Pavlov, yeah.
And so this lady has been in the background of all these teachings and everything. It's pretty interesting. I'll have to find her and share it with you.
That's not Catherine Austin Fitz, is it? Or...
It may be. Is she an older lady and she's talking for like hours?
Yeah, that doesn't narrow it down, no. But John Taylor Gatto definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. He really bucked the trend, didn't he?
He did.
I want to give you like my disclaimer here. I am not educated as some, but I'm educated by experience. So I dropped out of school when I was like 15, and then I learned for myself in my own time, in my own way, and I was able to go to the school for training for drafting and design, and it was a 3-year course, and I was done in a year and a half. And the teacher asked me to teach the other students because I understand how the real world works. Like the AutoCAD is like second vision for me.
So, Jack, just a little bit curveball here. How beneficial do you think in this day and age, do you think it would be somebody to go to school to learn drafting?
Oh, good question.
Actually, I think it would be very beneficial.
It's one of those few job markets that doesn't seem to be completely saturated. And if anything, from what I'm hearing, that it's they're in great need of capable drafters, whether it's Revit or AutoCAD. But learning one or both would just make a person invaluable, and you could probably almost write your own ticket to anywhere you wanted to go.
How beneficial?
I would actually say nobody should get into drafting because I like having the ability to find a job.
How beneficial would you say going to university to study astrophysics or metaphysics would be? Sorry, that was rhetorical.
I mean, the astrophysics it has nothing to do with reality. Now, I'm not talking about the real astrophysics, like going outside, making observable proofs of the track that all the lights are going on. It's a circuit that has been running for thousands of years, and it hasn't changed. So we don't need theoretical physics. We don't need to be wandering off with equation after equation with no sense of reality.
Yeah, Tesla, yes. What was it you just said? Real physics?
Metaphysics?
Metaphysics of the reality. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Theoretical physics.
I don't even know how to answer that question.
I don't even think there was a question in there, so I'm gonna shut up for a bit.
Well, listen, guys, I enjoyed the conversation, but I got to get going.
Thank you so much.
I'll email you IRM media.
That would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. We'll get you back on here. We'll spend some real serious time, and we'll start chewing on some of this stuff because, yeah, it's super interesting. I think I could probably send my girlfriend back off to work with a few little tidbits to point out that would be very, specific for engineers. I think that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jack.
Later.
All right.
Stay flat, you all. Bye.
Really cool call there. Really cool. What was his name, sorry?
Absolutely nice.
That is Jack, or Just Jack, if you were a fan of Will and Grace TV show.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, you're not missing a damn thing.
It's no Waltons, John.
Not by a lot.
We love the Waltons.
Wasn't that a spinster and a gay man? I remember.
Sort of. Ish. Not really.
So that flatline.
Yeah, that was successful. Look at us go.
Wow. This is not IRM. I'm sorry. I must have turned up on the wrong channel.
If it ever gets smooth, we're all clones. You better check our batteries. Look at the expiration date. Something's going on.
001 304 503 3528 flat.
That's it. Or if you're
there's a time to quit, and that's me right now. It's 2:20, and I'm going to head to bed before I go long.
Felt good enough to make it, man. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you made it.
I'm going to politely quit as well because I think I probably should.
Well,
And we've been going for another hour and a half, and I just can't believe where the hell is IRM? what's going on here? Things are working. What's happening?
It's absolutely crazy. We're still a steady high 70s as far as viewership goes too. I figured once Crow left, we'd have dropped to like 30. But in there, that's awesome.
On that note, I will go, and you can probably get 120.
Well, I've got 82 right now. So on my count, I just refreshed and got 82. Thank everybody. Thank you so much that are watching.
Well, sweet. John, I'll tell you goodbye now, and I'll probably just tell you goodbye again another hour and a half when you
actually leave, right?
Well, it depends if Man-Beard turns up. Where's Hack now?
Where is Hack stuff?
No.
I have no.
No, let me go before in case I'll offend him again.
So you can escape. Go rest up, man.
That's right.
Okay,
Feel
guys,
better.
it's been a pleasure. Zach, John, I'll catch you soon. I'll catch up with you, hopefully. Speak to you a bit better this week, and look forward to a pre-show. I'm not sure what we got next week, Josh, but I'll say good night and probably let you have an intro there, bros.
And I'll
take it easy, guys.
Yeah, take it easy, Adam. Hope you get well, better soon. And I'll just say ditto to everything you just said. Thanks to everyone in chat. See you later.
Awesome. All right. You guys have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah, take care, gentlemen.
Thanks for an awesome show.
Yeah, well, we have all the people watching and all the amazing folks in chat that have come back into the mix that we haven't seen in quite a while, and to all the new people in chat. We're approaching 2 years here, believe it or not, on this channel.
Hey, Walter.
And
Walter.
Yes.
Creep on that mic just a little.
What am I doing?
I said creep up on that mic just a little, or turn your gain up.
See, I turned it down a bit because of the fan issue earlier. I heard it start kicking in. Let me move. Hang on.
I just ease up. I'm not just crawl up on it.
That's what I did. So that way we don't pick up fans, because they're definitely running. Anyway, approaching 2 years, and we want to get a word out to everyone that's been around the show as far as guests that we've had literally since day one. And most of the people hanging out in chat with us usually are those people. Get in touch with us. Get us your information. Things are changed or have changed with some people's Skype information. Accounts have updated, etc. Things get lost in the mist of time. Just get in touch with us. IronRealMedia@gmail. Call us on the flat line and leave your information. We definitely are going to do everything we can to get as many people as we can all together for kind of a reunion type issue. That being said, I don't know if we'll make it for September, but maybe towards the end of September.
Hopefully at least maybe by the end of September. And that's going to be one of those great things about this flatline too. 304-503-3528 if you guys want to give us a call. But when we are not live, you can still call. Whether we're live or not, you can text us. You can send us a text message. So just anything. If you have been listening for the last year and a half, 2 years, and you think we've gotten continually worse and you haven't heard us and we're just unlistenable, send us a text. Call the flat line, leave us a message and tell us how much we suck. Or on the other end of the spectrum, tell us how much we've improved and how much you enjoy listening to our show. But these are things that we could actually use. That's what you call production value. See, then I just take those text messages and I can read them on the air. I can take those voicemails and I can play them on the air. So come our anniversary show, we'll have all this production value already in the bag. So that way, if you're not comfortable coming on the air and having a little conversation with us, you can just drop us a line.
Yeah,
let us know.
Shout out always works. That would be amazing.
But you still can call in live right now and talk to us live right this very moment, if you're so inclined. And I can't believe my wireless mouse died. I hate touchpads.